Hey folks, welcome. Just looking at my audio feed, looks like it's working properly. We've got Anna and Tyler and Alyssa and Rise ATD. Great to have you along. So, wow, yeah, Alyssa, you're right. It feels like it's been more than a week, right? Even though it was last time that it was 2 weeks between our modules. But I'm with you. I hear you. It's been a funky semester for me. I've been sick with various maladies for 2 months, and it's like, what the hell? Now I sound like an old man, which I am. Hey, so folks, we're gonna have a little bit of fun. Well, I like to think we have a fun every single time. But here's what we're going to do. So if you looked at the name of the module, it's Labor and Capital Part 2. All right, what's that mean? Well, remember, in Part 1 last week, which we can hardly remember, we talked about Karl Marx and alienation, feeling alienated from labor, from the product, from yourself, from each other, and so forth. And then we also let Adam Smith chime in on the topic. By the way, if you want to see how smart you are now, and I mean this, after the lecture, go on out to Google whatever and Google Planet Money, The Indicator, which is a short, 10-minute podcast. And the episode that they did yesterday was about Adam Smith and his take on alienated labor and how we're burning out because of specialization and so forth. In other words, The Indicator must have been listening in on our lectures last week because they did an episode on it. And it's a great way to show that what we're learning here, listen, I know you're here for the credits. I get it. It's not your fault. The education system has brainwashed us from day one to say that all that matters are points, grades, and credit hours so that you can get the requisite amount for the degree. Learning, let alone skills that you can actually apply to life, is like this weird after effect. It's side effect that we hardly even talk about. Point is, we can use this stuff, all right? Well, we're going to continue our conversation today. We're going to continue it by starting with some pornography. Now, I know, no, it's not really pornography. So YouTube is now going to freak out because I said pornography. It's Lady Chatterley's Lover. We're going to look at a chapter, excuse me, still got this cold. We're going to look at a chapter from Lady Chatterley's Lover, which back in the day when it was written in the 1800s was scandalous because Lady Chatterley was married and she had a lover. Oh my gosh. So we're going to look at a chapter of this. Now, what I want to do to set the stage for this is remind you of a couple of things. One, capital is everything. That's why they call it capitalism. Access to wealth is what creates wealth. You know that old adage, and it's an axiom that we should challenge. I understand that, but for the moment, we're just going to accept the adage. It takes money to make money. It absolutely does take money to make money. What if you knew that a certain stock was going to double in 10 months? Well, and it's a $500 a share stock. You might be able to buy one share and make $500, but if you could buy, say, 500,000 shares, you would make a lot of money. It takes money to make money. So capital is king. This is going to matter because in the story that we're about to discuss, Clifford, the mine owner, he has all the capital, and his employees, they got nothing. We'll talk about that, okay? So furthermore, let's go ahead and set the context for this little dialogue that we're going to explore. We got two characters, right? We got Clifford, who owns a mine, all right? He's the husband. He's the husband of Lady Chatterley. Her name is Connie. Clifford owns the mine. And Connie, of course, is his wife. Now, Clifford is loving life because he's a mine owner, right? But Connie, she kind of feels some moral reservations about the life they're living on the back of the workers, okay? So that's first setup for the conversation. Next thing I want to set up is you need to understand how mines worked back in the day. Now, real quick, the conditions have changed. The questions and conversations have not changed. You're going to notice that the discussion that Connie and Clifford have are conversations that you hear going on every day, even today. Okay, so this is not a history lesson, even though the conditions of the mines have significantly changed. But back then, remember, we're talking about a laissez-faire system with no government intervention, and there are no unions and no HR or anything like that. The mine owners, the Cliffords of the world, they owned everything. And I mean everything. They owned the mine. They owned the town. They owned all the houses in the town. They owned the stores. They owned the schools. They owned the bars. They owned everything. All right? So to work at the mine, you had to live in the town, which means you pay your rent to the mine owner. When you went shopping, you bought groceries from the mine owner. When you went to the bar, you bought your drink from the mine owner. When you went to school, you sent your kids to school with the mine owner, okay? That's the first thing. The second thing is you got paid very little, very little. There is no minimum wage back then, so you were paid hardly anything at all. And yet, you had to pay rent and food and, the drink, blah, blah, blah. You had to buy all this stuff because you're trying to stay alive and raise a family. Well, now, how did you pay for all this if you weren't paid very much? Well, easy. You'd live on credit. Credit to the mine owner. Okay, so you're living on credit in your home, you're living on credit at the store, you're living on credit in every way, shape, and form. Which is, and I keep thinking I need to play the song, but then, excuse me, again, the cold, I'd get in trouble with YouTube. But there's that song, I Owe My Soul to the Company Store, because you lived your entire life on credit to this entity. Which means they owned you. It's not slavery, but it's pretty much indentured servitude of the umpteenth degree. And these people own nothing. So they can't just pack up their SUV with their wife, their kids, and their dog and, put a shell on top of the car and take off and rent a U-Haul. No, they're stuck. Okay. So that's kind of the setting for the conversation that Connie and her husband, Clifford, are about to have. All right, let's play with this. So first of all, she's saying, hey, you know what? You really ought to pay more. You ought to pay your workers more. And after all, the scriptures teach us, remember, these are Christians, that we ought to give, we ought to be generous, and so on and so forth. And we need to support the poor. We need to help the poor, okay? Remember, I said that this is ancient history, but the conversations are exactly the same. So we need to help the poor. Well, to this, Clifford says, the point is not take all thou hast and give it to the poor, but use all thou hast to encourage the industry and give work to the poor. It's the only way to feed all the mouths and clothe all the bodies. Give away all we have to the poor spells starvation for the poor just as much as for us. Okay, here's going to be our first question to get some of these cool-ass light bulbs going on. Here's what I want to ask you. When Clifford says giving to the poor spells starvation for the poor, what does he mean? Why would giving to the poor not necessarily help the poor? Because after all, morals and ethics and our Judeo-Christian background tell us to help the poor and so forth, but we hear this argument quite often. Giving to the poor won't help the poor. It'll spell starvation for the poor, right? So, what is the argument behind this sentiment? This is our first 2-minute one. Let's get some light bulbs going. Okay, excellent. We're going to get some things going on here. So, yeah, you guys understand what Clifford is saying here very well, okay? So, Anna first starts out, she's saying, if you keep giving and providing for the poor, they'll stay poor, and you'll become poor having given them everything. Whereas if you give them a job, they'll learn to sustain themselves, right? Yes, absolutely. And then Lissa and Tyler, you guys agree on this, right? You're saying it's kind of like the parable, right? If you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. If you teach him to fish, you feed him for a lifetime and so forth. And so the idea here, and I want to be clear, and oh, by the way, Imani here also chimes in. Ooh, and we've got lots of conversation going, which means we're going to get some fun stuff. Imani says, if they were taught how to work for it as well as manage it, they would be more successful, right? Giving them access to wealth, not necessarily the answer to it. Okay. You guys are understanding what Clifford is saying here, and you're also understanding what, say, like the conservative arm of our political system tends to say. I want to be really clear on something here, by the way. I am going to express a general high-level point of view of both the left and the right. Both are supportable. So just to be clear, I'm not advocating for one side over the other. So the right tend to say, yeah, this is the issue. It's better to give people jobs than to give them, say, services, right? So this is why in the US anyway, our tax system doesn't really tax corporations in a normal way. We don't tax corporations like we tax individuals. And in fact, we don't really tax the rich. Now, why don't we tax corporations? Well, because the right of the government, the right wing of the government say, listen, it's pretty simple. We can either take $100 million from the corporation in taxes and apply it to goodness only knows what in the government, or we can let the corporation keep that $100 million and they will create jobs with it. They will invest, they will research, they will innovate, and this will create jobs. This will push the economy forward. Great things, okay? And this is a sound, argument. Think about you individually. What if the government came to you and said, I'll tell you what, I'll give you a choice. You can either take your taxes and give it to us, and we're going to do whatever we want with it, or we're going to let you keep the taxes and let you do what you think is best for your future. Which would you accept? I think I'm better able to decide what's best for my future than the government. That's the right side of the argument. The left side of the argument says, you know what? You're putting the cart before the horse. Corporations don't create jobs by investing. The consumer, the market create jobs. Okay? So the only way we create jobs is if a lot of people are buying your product. Let's say that I make skateboards, okay? Well, if I don't tax this company that makes skateboards, are they going to make more skateboards? Maybe, maybe not. They don't care what the tax code is when it comes to making the skateboards. They care about how many skateboards can they sell. Now, if they are selling an awful lot of skateboards, you better believe they're going to go ahead and invest in new factories and new technology and things like this. On the other hand, if the market for skateboards is tanking and not many people are buying them, well, they're going to take that money that would have gone to taxes and they'll give it to their shareholders through a stock buyback or something like that. So the left say the way to encourage business is to actually pay people more so they can buy more. So both arguments are sound, and yet both kind of, argue against one and the other. So this is what Connie and Clifford are talking about. And like I said, this is an argument that goes on today. Okay. By the way, Zamara says, and let's come back over here so I can get some light bulbs. If they're trying to solve a math problem, then you just look up the answer to the problem and still not knowing what the math still is. Yeah. It's where are we going to put the emphasis and so forth. And sometimes we're not even sure what kind of problem we're trying to solve for. I like it. Okay, let's keep going. So Connie says, oh gosh, it sucks to work in your mind. I mean, it does. It's laissez-faire. There's no safety. There's no nothing. Remember, it's awful. Connie says, but you make them work for you. They live the life of your coal mine. And he says, not at all. Every beetle finds its own food. No man is forced to work for me. Well, now, here's the thing, and we won't do the 2 minute here. We have plenty of other opportunities to do our 2 minute. No one's forced to work for them. But when there are no options, you're kind of forced to work. And when this is the only job in town and you cannot leave town and you are in debt to your eyeballs to this person, you're pretty stuck. You are pretty stuck, okay? I will do a 2-minute here. I'm going to ask you this. And I want you to think about it a moment, okay? Are there workplace policies that you have or your needs in your life and so forth such that it really makes it difficult for you to leave work, for you to find another job, or for you to say, stop working and pursue something that doesn't require you to work and so forth? In other words, what in your life is kind of forcing you to work right now? All right? I mean, do you have to work? And if you do have to work, why? Why do you have to work right now? Let's explore this for a moment. And where's my button? Here's my button. Okay, let's play with this. So there we go, right here. So Anna says, I need money for basic things like rent, tuition, gas, car insurance, and then fun things like books. By the way, Anna, my wife and our tradition for for a simple date is we go to dinner and then we go to the bookstore. And that's just a regular part of us going out. We always hit the bookstore. So I get you. Alyssa says, it's kind of like the article about the steel worker, Mike Lefebvre. When you have family, you have to provide for them. Then it's not just yourself, right? I'm going to give that one 2 light bulbs because you referenced the past reading. That's awesome. Imani says, in order to support myself, I have to work because I have many financial responsibilities, tuition, living expenses, transportation, and so forth, and they require you to work. Yes. Tyler says, well, let this go first. I don't have to work, but doing so would mean cutting back and not being able to have the basics. And then there's the motivation to go to work. Okay, you guys are good. You've got the basics here. You do. I want to show you a couple of things, though. It's this weird thing. I know this is not going to make sense. This is going to sound like an oxymoron. But the more you listen, the more sense it's going to make. Okay? The more you have, the more expensive life becomes. So, for example, a couple of you mentioned, I have a car, so I need car insurance. If you did not have a car, you would not need car insurance. You're like, well, no kidding. Yeah, but some people have 2 or 3 or even 4 cars. And that means they need to pay for car insurance on every single one. And what's kind of the dream to own a home, or a home and a vacation home, or a cabin? Do you know how expensive and how time-consuming, and I'm not making this crap up, expensive and time-consuming it is to maintain a home? And now we think that wealth is having 2 homes? And then you say, well, you can always pay somebody to take care of the other one. You're still spending money. So weirdly, the more we grow economically, the more dependent we are on our jobs. And I want to point out that Tyler pointed this out. You can go ahead and not work and cut back, but then you would be denying a life that you want to live and so forth. Yeah. And so we are a slave to the lifestyle that we want to live. And the more expensive that lifestyle is, the more dependent we are on our jobs, and the less financial freedom we have. I know that sounds backwards. The more wealthy you are, the less financial freedom you have to walk away from that wealth, unless you're willing to cut back. The more you earn, the more you spend. Exactly. And then Alyssa would point out, I know so many people that make way more than my family, and yet they still live paycheck to paycheck. This is the profit motive. You never make enough. You always want to make more. Okay? And by the way, I don't know if anybody here, if any of your jobs has tuition reimbursement or tuition assistance, but one of the caveats in most companies is if you use tuition reimbursement or tuition assistance, then once you earn your degree, you're required to work for us for 2 years after, or you have to pay us the money for the tuition. You're stuck. So just when people say you're not forced to work, that's simplifying things a great deal. Okay? By the way, I won't bug you guys with it. If you want to remind me after class, and I'll take a moment and tell you the story of my father in terms of simplifying and how he basically lived on 0 income, not making this up. I'll tell you the story of my father. Okay, so let's continue. One of the things that, what's his name, Clifford says is there's an absolute gulf between the ruling and the serving classes. And, I kind of feel like this gulf still exists, and in some ways may be getting worse. There is a great deal of power and prestige that is given to the ultra-rich. Power and prestige that you and I don't have. And it's really just because of access to capital, access to wealth, and so forth. So, yeah, normally in a lecture class, I have an exercise around this. I'll leave it alone, but just one of the things that Clifford says. What I really want to do is come over here to Anna's comment. She says, and let's pull this. Hang on. There we go. She says, my mom has a coworker that makes the same money as her, if not more, and still lives paycheck to paycheck. Exactly. By the way, guys, I think I don't know that I live paycheck to paycheck, but I will tell you, I couldn't go more than a few months without a paycheck. So I may not live paycheck to paycheck, but I definitely live quarter to quarter. And that's not much better. Not much better. Okay, let's continue on. Clifford has a really, really, really dim view of the masses. They're the unwashed commoner. The unwashed masses. He has a dim view of masses. So he says this. He says, the masses are unalterable. It is one of the most monumentous facts of social science. Panem and circenses. This means bread and circuses. We'll talk about bread and circuses in a moment. Only today, education is one of the bad substitutes for a circus. What is wrong today is that we've made a profound hash of the circuses part of the program and poisoned our masses with a little education. Okay, we're going to break this down into two parts. Let's first talk about bread and circuses, all right? It's the idea, it kind of came about in the Colosseum and so forth, when the unwashed masses got to be unruly and so forth. Well, just give them gladiator games and throw free bread up into the stands. Today at sports events, and we shoot T-shirts up into the stands. So now it's T-shirts and circuses, right? In other words, distract the people with unimportant things, and that way we can keep them in line. I like this line from one of Billie Eilish's songs, TV. The internet's gone wild watching movie stars on trial while they're overturning Roe v. Wade. Now, I don't care about where you stand on Roe v. Wade. The point is, power really likes us to be distracted. Even if we are debating really, really important social issues, we debate it through dank memes on social internet. Or on social media. We're not having a discussion. We're not exploring the topic. We're not looking at it from different points of view and really trying to build a consensus and overall understanding. We're just shitposting and hoping that we can win the dank meme war by posting the most amazing, awful thing that you've ever seen, right? And so now I hate Facebook. Because all I see are advertisements and memes and so on and so forth. And I'm like, what the hell? Let's actually talk about this stuff. So this is what I personally believe you are. Yeah. By the way, I'm about to say that I personally believe that one of the circuses used today is social media. But then again, I'm on social media. Right? So I'm not sitting here going, oh, I'm separate from this. No, I'm a freaking social media, influencer. I make social media crap, right? So I'm part of this program, all right? Now, the other thing he says, though, and this is what I want to explore, he says that we are poisoning our masses with a little education. And it makes me think of this quote by Alexander Pope that says, a little learning or knowledge, depending on where you get the quote, is a dangerous thing, okay? So I want to talk about this. Why would those in power consider education a dangerous thing? Why does education poison the masses when it comes to those in power? Let's explore this, and then I'm going to tell you about something that's going on in Salt Lake Community College around this right now. All right, so let's play with this for a couple of minutes. Okay. Yeah, I like this one. So Anna starts us off strong by saying, because knowledge equals power. Additionally, if the masses are uninformed and unintelligent, you can sway them however you want. I totally agree. The less educated in general, in aggregate, speaking as a whole, the less educated you are, the easier it is to sway you to a particular point of view. Now, I want to be really clear about this. There are plenty of uneducated people who are like, no, that's not true. I am not swayable. And there's plenty of educated people who go, oh, whatever will you say? I'm a sheeple like everyone else. And even though they're rocking a PhD. So I'm talking in gross generalities. Nevertheless, education trains people to think critically, to question, to interrogate, to examine, and to, well, not necessarily believe something the first time you hear it. Let's just say that. Lisa says, when people get one or two facts, they often believe they are now experts, even though they don't see the whole picture. Oh, I like that. There's this interesting phenomena. I forget the name of the psychological phenomena, but you'll understand it, right? It's this phenomena that they have found that people who have just a little bit of exposure to something feel that they are more expert in it than they would be otherwise. Kind of a famous study is they would first ask people, hey, if I gave you a bow and arrow, what are your chances of hitting a bullseye? And people would say, none whatsoever. And then they did it, and yeah, none whatsoever. And then they would have a different group watch like 2 hours of YouTube videos on archery. So they'd watch 2 hours of YouTube videos, and then they would say, all right, what are your chances of hitting a bullseye? And these people were like, I'm pretty confident I can do well. I've been watching YouTube now for 2 hours. I'm pretty confident I can do it. And their results suck just as much as the first group. Because we have a little bit of understanding, we're think we experts. I like that. Tyler says, I feel that with this, people get limited information and tend to create more misinformation because they want to be the smart ones. Ooh, that's good. That's good. This famous quote, I think it's from Charles Browski. I forget, he's an author. And I'm not even sure it's from him. Anyway, the quote goes something along the lines of the problem with this world is all the smart people are unsure, and all the stupid people are absolutely certain. And it's true. It's kind of like the smarter or more educated you become, the less sure of yourself you become. But if you have just a little bit of education, oh, you're certain. Makes me think of my favorite joke. Here's my favorite joke. Sit down. Here's my favorite joke. When you think you know everything, they give you a bachelor's degree. When you realize that you don't know anything after all, they give you a master's degree. And then when you realize that you don't know anything at all, and neither does anybody else, they give you a PhD. Now, speaking as somebody with a PhD, I can tell you this is true. I won't go into all the detail and so forth, but my PhD dissertation basically says, who knows? You have to do a study, answer a question, and the answer of any good PhD dissertation is, it depends, I don't know. Okay, let's go on. Let's see, Alyssa, TikTok has really emphasized the fact thing. Ooh, I'm glad to hear that. Really glad to hear that. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, I'm going to tell you a quote from the reading. Then I'm going to talk you through a scene in a famous movie. And then we're going to come back to this quote. Okay? And we're going to talk through this. So here's the quote. Connie says, their lives are industrialized and hopeless, and so are ours. Okay, let's break this down a little bit. First of all, industrialized means part of a heartless and soulless system, a cog in a relentless machine. Industrialized. Hopeless means desperate and without hope for a better tomorrow. Now, she says their lives are industrialized and hopeless, but she also says, and so are ours. And she's the rich one. So let me tell you about the scene in the movie. The movie is Metropolis. It's like made in like 1930. I think it's like 1918. Anyway, it's an old German movie. You've actually seen clips from Metropolis, that really cool scene where the woman becomes a robot as these halos go up and down. Old silent movie. Anyway, so we got this guy walking into a factory, and this guy, he's the son of the factory owner, all right? Son of the factory owner, and he is coming into his father's factory for the very first time. And he looks up, and he just sees this huge machine, this factory. And there are people working the machine. Now, if I were showing you the actual video, every time I do, YouTube kicks me off. So you would see that the people in the factory are working in lockstep, in mechanized fashion with the factory. In other words, they're not people. They are simply cogs in the machine. They are part of the machine. And they are struggling to keep up. They can hardly keep up with this machine. As a matter of fact, the machine is moving much faster than they can handle. If you have any friends who work at the Amazon Fulfillment Center, ask them who sets the pace, the employees or the robots. The answer is the robots. The robots at the Amazon Fulfillment Center set the pace. It's your job as the employee to keep pace, keep up with the robot. The robot is in charge, okay? We'll come back to that, Alyssa. We'll come back to that, all right? I'm going to give you the light bulb now, but we'll come back to it. Okay, so the machine fails because they can't keep up with the machine, and it just explodes and whole thing goes up. And at this stage, the son of the factory owner has this vision. He envisions that this great big machine in the factory becomes this all-consuming God, and we need to sacrifice the workers to this God. And so these workers start working their way up and are just fed into the mouth of this God that is industry. Now, here's what I want to ask. Remember, she said their lives are industrialized and hopeless. That makes sense. But so are ours? How is it that their lives are industrialized and hopeless as well? We're talking Elon Musk. We're talking Jeff Bezos. We're talking Mark Zuckerberg. We're talking all these people. How are their lives industrialized and hopeless? So let's play with that for a couple of minutes. Okay, let's do this. So, yeah, we're going to start with Alyssa. I gave her you're going to get a light bulb. I gave you the light bulb earlier, but I'm going to give you another here as we start this conversation. Her riches are dependent on the workers. Yeah, so the workers are dependent on their jobs for survival, but the rich are dependent on industry for their standard of living. Now, trust me, I'm not here to try to generate pity and deep heartfelt empathy for the desperate plight of the billionaires of this world. But the truth is, if their industries go under, if their companies don't do well, if their share price don't go well and so forth, there are a lot of people that will be bearing down on them they are beholden to a lot of masters, and they are used to a very specific lifestyle. And so they and their standard of living is just as inextricably linked to industry as those of the workers. Now, Anna, let's see. Anna goes on to say, let's see, in order to make their money, they're dependent on not only their workers to make their products or services, but the masses to buy the products. Yes, you've got Elon Musk and Donald Trump now basically plugging Teslas. Tesla stock has taken such a dive that they're shilling Teslas. Now, I say that in a derogatory sense, but this is real to Elon Musk. And so the masses are not buying Teslas. And this is really concerning to them. So, yeah, great point, Anna. Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos need to continually innovate to keep their stocks up. You know, these folks, I know it sounds weird, but the board can fire a CEO, even if the CEO started the company. If you want to check things out, check out where Elon Musk started. It's a little company called PayPal. He made good money there, but there's a whole history. Point is, they need to constantly demonstrate that they are of value. There are plenty of founder CEOs who have been kicked out of their own companies. Probably the most famous was Steve Jobs. He was kicked out of his own company. Now, of course, he came back and reinvented the place, but the point still stands. Tyler says their wealth isn't just made. Their life are busy schedules, allowing them to keep control of their workers and so forth. Yes, absolutely. I listened to a podcast yesterday about search firms, headhunters, and they were interviewing some headhunters that talk about trying to find CEOs. So these are the top of the top of the top headhunters, search firms that find CEOs for other companies. And one of the things that they said is, if you expect a certain work-life balance, CEO is not the career for you. CEOs work 24/7. They are on call 24/7. There is no work-life balance. And furthermore, you are always representing the company. Always representing the company. So if the shareholders don't like what you're doing over here, they will punish you over here. This is what Elon Musk is going through right now, is a lot of the people who supported Tesla in the past, all the Californians that didn't want to, drive, fossil fuel vehicles. Well, now they're seeing him and disagreeing with the approach that he's taking and working with Donald Trump. And so they're making him pay. So even when you're working in something separate, or if you're on, Rogan podcast and smoking a doobie this big, stock price takes a hit. And so, you're on all the time. Okay, let's keep going. I wouldn't be a good CEO. I don't like to be on all the time. I like to get in trouble and say, I don't care. Okay. One thing that Clifford says is that people should know their place. Keep the form of life intact. Know your place. Stay in your lane. And while maybe somebody hasn't said to you explicitly in the very words of stay in your lane, know your place, this is a sentiment that's given to us all the time. Professors send this message to students. Employers send this message to employees. Society sends it to us individually. Stay in your lane, don't rock the boat, know your place. But that's not how you innovate. That's not how you create. That's not how you move things forward. Okay. All right. We are now going to shift gears. Wow, just hit my green screen. We're going to shift gears. So here's the thing. Gandhi here, don't worry, it's related. Let's see. Oh, to quote High School Musical, stick to the status quo. Yes! I'm telling you, that message is sent all the time. All right? Anna agrees. All right. So, Gandhi here, he's really concerned about everything that we just talked about. All right? And it's related. All right, but we're going to segue into AI here, but we're going to start with Gandhi. He says, listen, and Lon, you need to be on the right page, on the right monitor. He says, here's the problem. This is what Gandhi's concerned about, is that capitalism is all about efficiency. And efficiency in its simplest, most banal definition is doing more with less, getting more output with less input. That's efficiency. And, well, that includes labor. If we can replace labor, then we can make things less expensively. Productivity is the objective, all right? Well, Gandhi says this is inhuman, all right? He says labor is what allows us to express ourselves. Labor is how we provide value to the economy and to our families. Labor is the mechanism by which we are able to live and raise a future, okay? And the idea that a machine would replace a person, to Gandhi, is so abhorrent. The machine doesn't need to raise a family. The machine doesn't need to pay a mortgage. The machine does not have hopes and dreams and aspirations. The human does. But capitalism and productivity and efficiency says, no, if I can do it with a machine, I'm going to do it with a machine. Putting productivity ahead of humanity. Now, to be clear, Gandhi is not like totally anti-machine. He actually really likes, say, the Singer sewing machine, all right? Now, bear with me. His story is a little outdated and misogynistic, but here's his story of the Singer sewing machine. To him, it's almost like a love letter. So the story, as he tells it, is that Singer would come home each day and see his wife sewing by hand all the clothes in the home and so forth, and mending and so on. And sewing by hand is hard work. And he thought, I love my sweetheart. She shouldn't have to go through this really painful, hard work to maintain our home and so forth. This is exactly where it's going, Anna. Exactly where we're going. And so he invents the Singer sewing machine. This isn't exactly how it happened, by the way, but for the point of the story. And the sewing machine made her work less painful, less monotonous, and more enjoyable. So it's like Anna says, machines that make human labor easier versus that of replacing it. This is exactly where Gandhi is going. If a machine allows you to do your work, but better, more effectively, with more enjoyment, then that's a good machine. If a machine says, I don't need you anymore, you can go off to the unemployment line, thank you very much, that's a bad machine. So I'm surrounded by machines right now. I'm surrounded by any number of machines, but they are helping me do my work. So they're good. But we know that this isn't the case. This is the current debate about AI. Okay, so let's play with this. We're going to come on down here. There's a video that I invite you guys to watch. Here's the funny thing about this video. It's, humans need not apply. It's in Canvas there. It doesn't really talk about AI. It's like a 6-year-old video, but it still holds up. Let me explain something. You know how they say, oh, you can't predict the future. Nobody knows what's going to happen with AI. Well, I'm kind of two minds on that. On one hand, yeah, nobody can say with absolute certainty what's going to happen with AI, obviously. I mean, there's some hilarious stories of people saying the internet will never take off. The internet will never happen. It's pretty funny. Yeah, in any case. So, no, nobody can say with certainty what's going to happen with AI. However, I will say this with certainty. AI is going to replace many, 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 many jobs and significantly influence just about all the other jobs. AI will replace workers. AI will change the way that those workers who are still around are doing their jobs. This is an absolute promise. If it doesn't turn out to be that way in 20 years, you can come back and ask for your money back. But it's going to happen. Because this is the way it always happens with technology. Always. I challenge you to find any technological innovation in the past that did not first replace workers and second, significantly influence the work of those who were left. It always happens because companies want productivity. They want increased efficiency. There's this great video. Check this one out. After class, go to YouTube, look up the channel StoryBinder, Studio Binder. I'll put it down here, Studio Binder. It's a channel that does videos about the filmmaking industry. And yesterday they published a video about how AI is affecting the filmmaking industry. It is completely changing everything. Everything. Very fascinating. So already my prediction is coming true. By the way, Anna said real quick, I saw a study that technology has been taking more jobs than it has since 1980. Yes, I think I've seen that same study. So here's our next 2-minute question. And guys, by the way, you're on freaking fire today, and that's like totally awesome. So we're gonna finish this out and keep building the lighty bulbies. Here's the question. Folks, you have never been asked such a deadly serious question because you, in your life, in your stage right now, as a college student, you absolutely must know the answer to this question. The question is, what can you do? Not in general, in abstract humanity. I mean you. I mean Anna and Alyssa and Tyler and Imani and all of you. Zamara. What can you do or what will you be able to do that a machine, computer, or robot cannot? Now, the good news is we're going to answer this question. But you really need to know this. You need to think about this. So on our 2-minute timer, what can you do or what will you be able to do that a machine, computer, or robot cannot. Let's play with this. And here it is. Okay, we've got some great things. So first of all, and Anna's going to start us off, but then that means we are now, yeah, you guys cleared them out. I love it. I absolutely love it. So Anna says, help take care of, have a human connection with a child, play with the child, give the children a gentle human touch that they need. Okay, this is really, really, really big, guys, not just as a parent with a child. There are many industries in which the human factor is really the sellable thing. Take the medical industry for a moment. They have actually experimented with AI, robotic nurses, and so forth. Patients don't like robotic or AI nurses. Furthermore, even eventually they'll get better. People generally, when you are talking to a nurse in a hospital, you are scared, you are in pain, you are vulnerable, and you don't want to talk to a computer. You want to talk to a human being who understands what it means to be scared, to be in pain, to be vulnerable, and can have empathy for your state and be able to read you and give you the sort of care that you need. Nursing, parenthood, those are just two examples of a million examples where people actually want to talk to a human being. So one of the first skills that you can really learn and leverage is empathy and emotional intelligence, because AI does not currently, nor for the foreseeable future, will AI have empathy and emotional intelligence. Very good, Anna. Tyler goes on to say, hey, you know what? Learn how to use it before others can. So I am the one in charge of running said robots. Okay, yes, bringing human touch into it. That's a nice touch. So I used to work for Intel Corporation, and I'd go into the fabs. These are the fabrication factories. We just called them fabs. These fabs are full of the most technologically advanced machines and robots on the planet. Most technologically advanced machines and robots on the planet. But they still need people to run these machines, to program the machines, to troubleshoot the machines, to problem solve and so forth. And so these are all the people running around in the bunny suits. They're all PhD engineers and making $250,000 a year. I mean, I don't know how much they're actually making, but they're making an awful lot of money because they are part of a very, very small cadre of people who know how to run said robots, as Tyler would say. So I like it. Going on, Alyssa says, sense of self-fulfillment. We have to run into people trying to find fulfillment in life through phones and social media and come up empty-handed. We cannot duplicate that fulfillment through AI. Okay, so Alyssa, this is a big thing going on with YouTube right now. YouTube, as a creator, I follow the news. I follow the movers and shakers in this industry and so forth. And of course, everybody's losing their collective minds over AI and what that's going to do to YouTube. And one of the posits that they make, one of the assertions they make is, listen, there will always be a place for the human connection. I mean, sure, there's going to be a time where AI will be able to generate, well, maybe not as beautiful as I am, but it'll be able to generate something pretty close to being as good looking as I am and be able to respond and talk with intonation and so on and so forth. But it won't have that human connection. And people really like that. People, when we interact with machines, it's this transactional thing. I'm doing this to the machine. I expect this output and so forth. Whereas with human connection, you're looking for relationships. You're looking for exploration. You're looking for belonging. And so they're telling YouTubers, listen, there's always going to be a place for the human connection. Make sure your channel includes human connection. So yeah, I love it. I love it. Okay. So by the way, couple things real quick as we finish up here. Yeah, I was just looking at the time and so forth. We're good. We're going to finish up here real quick. There's a couple of YouTube videos out there that I invite you to take a look at. One of them is called, it's a TEDx talk. Why are there still so many jobs? And this guy here, he actually thinks he's a lot funnier than he really is. He's a lot like me in that way. He gives a couple of principles that kind of show that, you know what? Technology has always been replacing human labor, and yet there are more human labor jobs out there than there ever have been before. How do we make sense of this? And so he gives this talk that basically says, don't worry, there's always going to be jobs. And then another one that you might check out is, what's his name? John Oliver, something Oliver. I forget his name, but he has this video on automation. And he says at the end of the day, the jobs that are going to stick around are, quote, if you can do a series of non-routine tasks that require social intelligence and complex critical thinking and creative problem solving. If your job does that, and nursing, human connection, parenthood, engineer taking care of machines, all the things that we've talked about require a series of non-routine tasks that require social intelligence and complex critical thinking and creative problem solving. So this is what you should be training for. Just, you know, education's important, and the degree is important, and the points are important, and the credit hours are important. But at the end of the day, you can't sell any of those for a loaf of bread. This is how you're going to be indispensable in the economy of the future. So, yeah, learn this stuff. Okay, guys, that's it. You guys did absolutely phenomenally today. Check this out. Check this out. And that's on our second string. So, I've got a picture of everyone that's here, so don't worry about sending me an email. I'm going to take good care of you. You folks, you made today's lecture a real pleasure, and I appreciate that because I'm sitting all alone in this room, and I need human connection. So thank you. As always, I'm going to stick around for a few minutes if you have any questions or comments or anything at all. Otherwise, go off, have a fantastic day, have a fantastic week, and we'll catch you next time around. We'll see you, Tyler and Imani. Have a good day. Yes, you too. You too, Anna. Have a nice day. Yeah, and Tyler, we'll see you tonight. I'll be at the work shift live stream. Sorry about all the coughing today. Nice thing is the work shift live stream is just music. All right, I see folks dropping off, so I am going to go ahead and log out, and we'll see y'all later. Have a good one.